Hi guys, very good evening to all of you. Welcome to the video number 397, and in this video we are going to talk about the how to create a user form and how to log in through that user form and how you can actually access your details. Now details can be anything, but in this video I'm particularly going to take the call center data as an example. Now I received actually a couple of queries revolving around this subject, that how to basically create the passwords in the user form, or how to ensure that if somebody is logging in from their system, then they can't access the other details, other employee IDs detail. So this is what we are going to do in this. Now this video particularly will talk about only the Excel, but my coming video after this will be on the Excel plus the Access, how to integrate the Excel with the Access, and we will use the same concept. All right, so let us go ahead and start this video. And for those who are watching the channel for the first time, guys, we have here 397 videos on Excel, VBA, Access, and Access VBA. You can go and check this playlist. Here we have 44 different playlists created for you. Any title which starts with the Access VBA is purely on the Access VBA. Any title which has an Excel word, it is on the Advanced Excel, and any word which says Excel VBA, as you can see here, it is all about the Excel VBA. Okay, and where you don't have anything like the Access VBA, you get to see that video will talk about the Access front end, right? So let's go ahead and let us first of all discuss that what exactly we want to do here. So guys, let us go ahead and first of all I want to show you. So suppose this is your Excel file which I'm opening. Main DB is the file name, and what I want to do is suppose your data which is maintained by the admin, maybe, right, which can be a password protected, or maybe it is not required. I mean, it can be on the shared drive, that's fine. So basically the point is I want to use this information for myself. Okay, if my employee ID is, let us say, 500, and then I will create a login page where I go ahead and click put my 500 employee ID in the text box, and I click on the OK to see my information, which would come that you have answered these many calls, and short calls are answered by these many 5 calls, and your AST by the way is average handling time, the talk time. Basically you have answered 18 calls, then on the 18 calls on an average for how many seconds you have actually attended the customer. So but if I try to use somebody else's, if I want to kind of take a sneak look, I want to just check out somebody else's employee ID by putting there someone else's employee ID and want to see the details, I cannot do that. I should not be able to do that, right? So it is going to give me the access only for my employee ID. This is what we are going to prepare, guys. Okay, so I'm going to create here one more workbook. Let me insert the new workbook. Now guys, this is your new workbook, and here we are going to create the form. So I go to the developer tab, and in the Visual Basic, and then I go and click on the Project Explorer, and now I click on the module. Let us see whether we want to do something or not, but first of all I just want to create on the user form. Click on the user form, and this is how the user form is going to be created. Now for those who do not actually have any knowledge about the user form, not a worry. In this channel you will find everything. If you just write here in the that's basically the playlist user form, because these are 44, it's very difficult to find it out. So if I just click on the search, let me see if I can show you. That's it, guys. So you have 11 videos under this Excel VBA user form, and the good part is that we have all the videos starting from the scratch. Especially these part 1, part 2, and part 3 videos you must watch to get to know your user forms pretty well, right? Now, so this is because this is not the basic video. This is going to be the extreme level of a video, advanced level of a video. So I will not really like to start from the scratch. I will simply tell you that how you can do that, how you can use the functions, and how you can quickly make the form. Now the first thing in the toolbox, which is this toolbox, is you create the text box where the user is going to enter the the employee ID. So I can just write it here, and I can use the label. This is the label which is used to write any information. So when you click on this label, just go to the view and click on the property window, and in the property window you just go ahead and let me just give me a second. So in the label 1 you can write here employee ID. Okay, this is what you need to write, employee ID. So this is your employee ID where the user will write his employee ID, And then what is the next thing we want to do is we want to create a button here which the user should click. So we're going to create here the command button, and you can hit the command button here, and then again click on this control and go to the view and the property window. If you think that I'm going too fast, then guys, I'm again telling you, you first go ahead and watch those videos which I was just telling you, because there I have explained in a very detailed everything about these controls, right? So I go ahead and I simply do one thing. I'm going to actually use this caption. So in the caption I'm going to create here maybe submit or view your details, whatever you want to do, view details. So this is a very simple form I'm creating. Of course you can do lot of stuff with the user forms, but because you guys, your question was more around the login part, so I'm going to tell you only particular technique. So this is the form which is ready. If I just run it, this is how it would look like. So I'm gonna enter here 500, and the moment I press, what should happen, that Excel file main DB should get open, and from there you get to see the detail. Or maybe it should not get open, it should open, but user should not be able to see that, and immediately it gets closed. That's something I want to do it. So how to do that, right? So now what we particularly going to do is, now there are a lot of ways of doing it. Maybe you can click here and you can get the message box. I think that is one of the best option. Or maybe you can export these values in the Excel itself. Okay, so you can do that as well. Maybe you can create one more, that if the user wants to keep a track of his performance day to day, then that is also something they can do. So you just go ahead and copy and paste it. Will have the same control here. So these are called basically the command buttons. I click here and again I go to it, the caption, and here I will write that export details. So what you can do, so view detail will give the message box, and export detail will export the details of the user. So this is the form which is done. Now let us go ahead and first of all prepare this. Now before I actually go ahead, guys, I also want to tell you one more thing, that in the main database where you have those employee IDs, right? So if you're generally in your company, how it works is that employee ID are different, and the username for the machine is different, right? So better you write here the usernames. I think that would be extremely good. But if you do not want to give that kind of a facility, you want that the employee ID should enter the people should enter the employee ID, not basically the LAN ID, the username, which when on your laptop or computers, generally the user ID and the password you provide, but that is required in order to deal with the situation. So what you can do is, you can always keep this record. So whoever is maintaining this database on the regular basis, generally admin people, they do that from, or maybe any MIS guy, who keeps this data, who pull out this information from the different tools like IX, CMS. There are so many tools, Avaya, right? So that person is going to keep a track as well, and that person is going to keep the user ID as well here, because user ID is very important. Okay, so now when the user ID is going to be there, so for example I write here that the username is maybe ABC, and here we have AK, and here we have HH, and then ZZ, and maybe here we have this kind of a user ID, then maybe some we have this user ID. So you can write whatever you want, and maybe this is the one of the user ID. So I just go ahead and write this. Now this is the another user ID, and this is the user ID, and this is user 4, and this is the another, and this is the another one. These are all the actually basically the user IDs. Now I'll tell you how we're gonna automate this. Okay, and better I can cut this, and I can maybe put it here. So let me just insert the cut cells here. So this is your database. The first thing which you would like to do in this is that when the it clicks on the view detail, should happen, the first thing which should happen is that this main DB file should get opened. Okay, so I'm going to open this workbooks.open, and then you want to open that file. So it's on my C drive, I know that, so I'm going to write here this the path of this. So you can write here user C drive, and then user, and then your the username. So I log in my basically the login, the the booting username is Acer for this my laptop, and then I'm going to write desktop, and after the desktop I think you should simply write the path, right? So I'm going to write here main db.xlsx. so this is done. Now one more thing we want to do is this Acer, which is my login ID, through which I actually log in, this is very specific to me, so I don't want to do that because you may have a different ID. So this we will capture from the VBA. So what you will do is you will use here one function. You write here that my ID as string or variant, whatever you want to call it. I am writing string because most of the time the username actually is string. You write here my ID is equals to environ. Okay, so environ is going to be your the function which is which returns the username. So if I just run this right away, for example, let me just close this first of all, show you here. So if I just run this, this is how it would look like. You can see that it says Acer, right? So basically this is my machine name, right? If I show you just a second, if I just go ahead and maybe you lock your system like this, and when you lock like this, and so what happens when I just sign in here, this is the Acer one, I sign in using this particular ID. So that is what actually I'm going to use here. Okay, so now let us go ahead and let's make this dynamic. So I go back to the code, and this is what I need to do. So basically you need the usernames. Okay, you need the usernames for your employee IDs, which is very it's not something very tough to get these, right? Any IT department, they have all these details, right? So you should have these details with your employee ID. Now this is going to be opened, and so my ID will take the place of this Acer. So we are going to make this dynamic. That is the first thing we're gonna do it, right? Now this will open the workbook, and the next thing now you will do is that whatever the value you have put in your form, which is this form in the text box, right, you are going to use that value. So if I just press F4, it shows that my basically the text box name is text box 1, so I can maybe name it as txt employee ID, like this. Okay, so now when I double click here, what I need to do is I need to create one more variable, which is name, and I will write there that the employee ID, maybe let's say the employee ID as so I'm going to name it as long, and then you will further go ahead and you will write here my employee ID is going to be equals to employee ID is going to be equals to the value which is in your that employee ID text box, right? So in this way the employee ID will be captured. Now once the employee ID will be captured, what is the next thing you would like to do here? Now the next thing you would like to do here is that basis your employee ID, you will find the user ID, and then from the user ID you will go ahead and find out the cause answer detail. So what I will do is I will just cut this line here again, and I'm going to put it here so that I can easily use the VLOOKUP, because VLOOKUP always works in the left to right direction. So this is my table basically, right? You can also define this table in the name manager if you want, but I just don't do that. So now what I will do is I'll create here one more variable, which I'm going to create here that final val as let me declare for the time being as variant. You can declare it as string, long, depending what user ID you have. So the final val actually is going to do what? It is going to use the VLOOKUP. So this is how we are going to use the VLOOKUP worksheet function and the VLOOKUP. If you don't have any idea about this VLOOKUP function, please go and check my playlist Excel VBA functions. Here I talked about this VLOOKUP, how to use the VLOOKUP in the Excel VBA, sorry, right? And if you're new to the Excel, then in the Excel also without any programming, how to use the VLOOKUP, there is a playlist called Excel VLOOKUP and match. You can go and check that as well. So I'm going to use this VLOOKUP, and now there are 4 arguments. The first argument is the lookup value, what you want to find. So I'm going to write here that I want to find the employee ID, and obviously what is your table. So your table would be this workbook which you have opened. So what you can do is you can write the workbook name. Okay, so you can write the complete workbook name here. So I'm going to write here the main db .xlsx, like this. Just a second. Okay, and put it within the quote. And now you close this and then press dot, and what is the next thing you want to do is you want to actually use the sheet, and in this sheet you will use the sheet 1, and then you go in the range and then you write here from the B column. So what is your column basically? So your column is B1 to C, okay, because using that you want to find the user ID, right? So I just write here C maybe 15 in my database. You can see the range is B1 to C15, and then what is the next step you would like to do is, first of all, let me close this, and the argument 3 is the second column, and then exact match. That's it. Now you will have your username from this. So further to this, now in the message box you will pop up with everything. So what you can do is you can write here that again you can create a few more variables that for example the answered calls. So you can write here, or maybe you can write a underscore calls as long, and then offered calls as long, and then short calls. So you can write here short calls as long. Okay, now what we will do is we will find the answered calls. So how are you going to find the answered calls? Again, you use the same function, which is this VLOOKUP, but this time the lookup will change obviously, because you want to find out you want to find out these answered calls for the person who basically holds this information, who basically has this the username, whatever the username, and that username will automatically be captured. So what I can do is I can simply go here and I can write that the username is going to be the final val, which would come from the top. So this is what we are going to do. So the final val is going to look up. So we're going to look up this final val. So the table would now start from the C. So you should write here C. Okay. And in the C now, for the call answered C to D, I would go and I will write here D15. I need the the second column. So that's perfect for me. And similarly, I just copy this and I paste it here and I paste it here. This is going to be my offered calls and this is going to be my short calls, right? So I'm simply using the VLOOKUP, nothing else, right? So offered call again, we will have a look using the final val, but this time in the C to E, that is going to be my table, because I think the offered there is no offered call. Basically there is answered call, short calls, and AST. That's it. So basically I should have written here AST. Okay, so I can write here AST, and this is going to be AST, average handling time, right? So average handling time, I'm going to look up the table here, and you know that this is the first, second, third, and fourth. So I have a fourth column, so I will write here 4. So let me just write here 4. So this is done, and now I have another thing which is short calls. So short calls, again I'm going to use that. I have a final val again, and this final val I look up in the table called C to D. So short calls are going to fall in the C to E table, and the third column, so I just write here E, and then I'm going to write here 3. So in this way now you have got your AST answered calls and short calls using the VLOOKUP. So in the message box now you can write here that your score for the day as follow. Okay, so this is what you can write. And by the way, let me do one thing. Let's say that this data is only for one date, right? We are not bothered about the date. We just looking now in this example, what we are assuming that this sheet always have the previous date data, right? So user just want to check the previous date data, and that is why we are giving the option as well that the next day when the new file would come, new data would come, so he can export, and every time when he exports the data in the form, it keeps on storing. So that is what we want to do. So your score for the day as follow, and then I will create one you can create one line with the new line in the message box, and then you can write here that calls answered, and then you can write there that on the answered calls are A calls, and then again you can put it the AST is, you can write, and whatever the AST is, so these are the variables, you can't put that in the code. So I write here short calls. You just write here short calls are, you can put it in the quotes, double quotes, and just write here short calls, guys. Okay, so this is how the message box would look like. Now we will have to see how we're going to do this. And of course, then later on, what you can do is you can close this workbook as well. So you can write here that the active workbook dot close, right? So there are a lot of ways of doing it. I mean, you can close this workbook, and of course you can protect this as well. I mean, so that nobody should be able to see that, and in the coding itself it unprotected and then protect it back, right? So that's an altogether different thing. That's not the purpose of this video. What I want to do is that simply if the user enters his employee ID, should be able to see its user ID, right? In this particular example, guys, getting the employee ID is really not so important, because finally from the employee ID, what we are doing is using this employee ID, we are only trying to get the user ID, right? Now why I'm saying the employee ID, because it gives a little good feel. Generally in your industries, you are known by your employee IDs, right? Of course, I mean, employee name is something else, that's your name, but employee IDs generally, HR people, they use it. They don't use those LAN IDs, sort of that stuff. So in this way you can create this form. So let us go ahead and first of all test this. Is it going to work or not? So I'm going to save this, first of all, the code, and if this will have some problem, we're going to discuss that, right? Because I'm making this project right in the video itself. I haven't prepared for that because I wanted to start it from the very scratch. I read your emails, it was in my mind, and I wanted to talk about it. So just uploading this video as a completely new. If we will have some challenges, we will write in this video, we will rectify that. So let me close this main DB, and I want to save the changes. Yes, I want to save the changes. Now what we need to do is this is the form which we have prepared, and I'm just going to create a button over here, with the help of which when user opens this user form, then what happens, this button should pop up that the form. So in order to pop up the form, what we need to do is you need to go to the module, and you write here, for example, ABC. Give it some good name, I mean show form, or maybe the form name, sort of that. Don't write ABC, but I'm just writing because we just have a one form, and the form name is actually UserForm1.show. This is how you write. Okay, this is how now you connect this ABC with this macro, this button, and the moment I click here on this button, the form would come, right? That's the very basics of the form. Now when I enter here 100, for example, I write here 100. Now I click on the view detail. Let us see what will happen. Sorry, we couldn't find this my C drive user ID. Okay, I got the problem. Actually, basically it's not the user, it's the users, right? So I should keep it the users, and I hope rest is all fine. So if I just run this, this is how we couldn't find the path. Okay, so I have to see now. Let me just pick up the the path. I right click on this, I go in the properties, and in the properties just see this path. This is my path, right? I'm not sure what went wrong there. Let us see again the code. Okay, so that's the code, and I just copy it and paste it here. C drive users. Okay, users, and this is my ID, which would come from the obviously this function environment, and then main db dot xlsx. I guess there should not be a problem. This looks fine to me. Just go ahead. Okay, I got the point. Actually, what is wrong in this? Basically what happens, guys, see that this my ID is not going to give you anything, because this is a variable and you have to join it, right? Okay, so that's it. Now my ID, you have to you can't simply write this users and slash my ID, because it's a variable. You have to concatenate it. And by the way, better I can write here the caps. Okay, fine. So I just save this, and let us go ahead and run this again. I go and write 100, and I'm gonna click on the view detail. Here we go. Alright, unable to get the VLOOKUP property. Alright, so we have some error in the VLOOKUP, guys. Very interesting to see now. What is the problem? So here we have, you can see here ABC. So 100 employee ID, user ID is ABC. You can see here. So ABC is going to look up in the main db.xlsx workbook name sheet 1, and the range is C2 E15, C2 E15. Okay. And 4,0. So I need to see whether this is correct or not. So I have this table C2F. Okay, so alright, so that's my mistake, guys. As you can see here, VLOOKUP needs C2F. You have C, D, E, F, and that was the mistake, I think. So I should write here F. There we go. Now we got this running again, and now let's have a look. Your score for the day as follow: call answered 1, call answer 10, AST is 200, short calls are 2, and then you can close the active workbook at the same time. Now active workbook actually is going to be your book 1 this time, because book 1 is activated. So don't do that. Instead of that, what we can do is we can simply write here workbook, the workbook which I want to close. So you can write here the workbook name, which is going to be main db.xlsx, and you're going to write here this one. Okay, and by the way, you just put in so this is going to close, and I think that's fine, right? It is going to close, and we should not be able to see any the message box here while closing this, that you want to save the changes or not. So I just go and close it for the time being. Let me click here and let me enter the employee ID 100 again, and let's click here on the view detail. Subword function not defined. This is actually workbooks, guys. I'm so sorry for that. Let us just run this, and there we go. So you have your score for the day as follow. Your call answered 10, AST is 200. Is this correct? Yes, it is correct. Is this, and AST is 200, and short calls are 2. So so the details are coming, but there are some things we need to rectify, because you see the message wasn't clear. So we need to create a space here, call answered, and follow. I can write here maybe like this, and in the AST as well like this, and that's it. So I just go and now run the code again. I save this file first of all, and I run this. Now when I run this, I click on the 100 and I click on the view details. That's what I see. Your score for the day as follow: call answer 10, AST 200, short calls are 2. So I still need to put the space in this. AST is 200. So how are we gonna do that? I just go back to the coding, and we're going to create here answered calls, and the AST is, and after the AST short calls. Yeah, that's what you can do, right? So let me just click here and view details. Type mismatch is coming, guys. Let me end this. I don't know what went wrong. Let us just go ahead and run this again. So I write here 100. I think I forgot to write the employee ID. So I click on the view details, and there we go. And now it looks very nice. Call answer 10, AST 200, short calls, and that, right? Now one more thing, when you see this, the workbook is in front of you, and you can see the entire data, which you absolutely do not want. So what we can do is, though the workbook is getting closed, you see that the workbook was closed, but we don't need that thing. So what you need to do is, if I just open this main DB, maybe you can do one thing, guys. Why don't you, when this workbook gets opened, the first thing you should do is that you should select this sheet 2, or maybe you can keep your cursor here. That is something you can do. Now whenever your admin is going to save the data, it should be on the sheet 2, or maybe in the coding you can do that, right? In the coding also you can do that, right? And at the end of this, we will go to the tools and the VB project properties, and I'm going to lock this, and I'm going to put the password here. The password, suppose I'm going to put it here as 1 and 1, so that obviously give it a good password. This is a very simple password. Now why I'm saying that, because any coder, if he goes in the background, he can run the F8 and he can see step by step how the workbook is getting open. So that is why I'm going to protect this. So I have put the password. Now let me save this, and this as well. This is going to save on the sheet. And now if I save this file and run this again, let us see how it is going to work. So I put the employee ID as 100, and this is how it should give me the results. And now I can't click here, you can see here. Okay, so I can click here as well. That is another thing, guys. If you're on the sheet 2, you can simply select sheet 1, and that is again the flaw. Okay, but we have a solution for that as well, because I never wanted to show this data, right? So what I can do is maybe we can do one thing. We can get this workbook closed immediately. So when this workbook gets opened, I can first of all bring the speed as well. You can write here screen updating equals to true. Now this is going to make your application very fast, the code fast way, right? And then at the end of this, what you can do is you can write here that change it back to true, but here we're gonna make it false, right? So you should not be able to see anything. Okay, that's the first thing. Now if I just close this and I run this and I press enter and I just click here on the view details, look at this, guys. Application.screen updating did its job, right? You see that this one, and you press OK, and there we go. Wow, so nice, right? Again I click here and this is the workbook getting open, but you will not be able to see and the speed is also there. So basically application screen updating doesn't move the screen at all, right? You find the screen is still, it's not moving. Now I have a big flaw in this, because if I enter here 500, which is another employee ID, and I click on the view details, you get to see here call answered 18, AST is 23, and short calls are 5. If I just get to write here 200, the answer will change, and you get to see here your call answered 12, AST is 222, and short calls are 2. You get to write here maybe 100, again you get to see a different answer, call answers A, and AST is 200, right? This is something we do not want, right? So my idea is to basically not get the employee ID, because what is happening, if you give the employee ID, if I just show you this table, you just give the employee ID, what happens, any employee ID which user enters, that is going to be captured by the user ID, because finally your the lookup, these AST short calls and these answered calls, it's actually getting compared with the final val, and you know that the final val basically is nothing but it's your user ID. So why don't we go ahead and we simply write the user ID only? I think that would be the perfect way. So now what you need to do is, you don't have to give any option to the user at all in the text box. That was my the plan. I don't want him to enter anything. I just delete this, guys. I'm gonna delete this, I'm gonna delete this, and this is my simple form. You can modify it, that what they want to do, they can do that. So this is the form, this is how it would look like. And now here we don't need the employee ID, so I can simply go and remove this, or you can comment this out. Right now my ID is, this is the ID which is going to capture my username automatically, so user doesn't have to type in anything, right? So this is a VBA function which so from whichever user ID you have logged in onto the system, that will be captured here, right? And I hope that in your office you never logged in from any other ID, right? This ID will go there, and then finally what we are going to do is this my ID basically, which you have found, you can replace it here the final value with the my ID, because you have your employee ID, and I think this is something you don't need it, so you just comment this line out. Right, so here you have my ID, and here again you have this my ID, here also again you have the my ID. That's it, guys. Right, now when I run this, see what will happen. I click here, there we go. You see that my ID is going to give you the answer. When it is going to give you the answer, this file gets opened, and if I just run it, unable to get the VLOOKUP property. It might be because of the reason that this answer, we will have to see now where exactly it is. So if I just go and click on the sheet 1, then it starts with my C. So from C to D I will go. So from C to D15 I will go, and so this is my answer, and I don't have any user ID here. Answer is not there, so that's the reason I'm getting the error. But if I just, for example, write here answer, because here you will have all the basically the user IDs getting created, right, of your company. So now if I just close this and I save this, what will happen the next time when I click here, I click on the view detail. There's no need to enter the employee ID. There's no need to enter the user ID, right? So basically, this is how when you plan the things, you come across the different things. Now we saw that writing the employee ID is not going to add any value, because then anyone can enter anyone's employee ID, and that is going to be looked up in the table, and we will have the LAN ID from there, and from the LAN ID username, the other details can be easily tracked, right? So now I click on the view detail, and there we go. You see that call answer 10, AST is 200, short calls are true. So is it correct? I think it is correct. Still, I would like to give it a try. So let me first of all close this, and let's go back and open this main DB. This is 10, this is short calls 2, this is AST 200. It is coming correct. If I just change this, and I'm going to write here, let's say Acer, this is my so 26 calls I have answered, 21 short calls I have here, and 355 is my AST. We will try to remember this. Now I click here, and I click on the view detail. You can see here that I have call answer 26, short calls 21, and AST is 355. No option for the user to write any employee ID or anything else apart from that. Let's go back to the export details, because I want to export the detail as well. What if I want the detail over here? So how you can do that? So now let's go to the Visual Basic environment again, and let's have this information exported. So I double click here, and this is my command button 2, which is for the export. So it is very simple. Now what I will do is I will simply first of all create here all the things. For example, you have the answered call, you have the short calls, and then you can also write the date as well here, if you just in case you're interested. You can use the VLOOKUP for the date, or maybe you can use that this date -1 as well. We will use it in the VBA. That's all up to you, because in your database also you have the date. So you have the answer short and the AST. So you write here like this. Now what we need to do is every day we need to compile this so that the user can always use this sheet. So it's very simple. Here we will go and we will write here, and that in the sheet 1. This is how I will select the sheet, and then what I'm going to do is I'm simply going to run this code from the A, maybe let's say 10,000, and it is going to move in the upward direction, Excel up, and using the Excel up we are going to move the one row down. So basically this line, what it does, it uses the control up arrow, and using the control up arrow it will further go ahead and move one row down. So just a second, let me first correct this. Okay, there we go. So range A1 10,000 and Excel up is going to use the control up arrow, and using the control up arrow basically you will go here, and then you can go one cell down using the offset function. That is how it is. And now what is the next thing you want to do? Well, the next thing you want to do is you want to use these the values which you have used in the upper code. So I will simply write here that my active cell, which is going to be A2 in this particular example, so active cell dot value is going to be equals to the date. So what is the date? So you can write here whatever the date you have -1, right? In VBA you don't have today function like in Excel. You can use the today function. This is the to return the today date. In VBA you write the date function. So I'm going to write here date -1, but I would say if you have a mix of the dates, then you can always write here, find out the date as well, specifically what date was was in the database. If you can have a different types of the dates, well, that depends, but I'm believing that the file which is available on your desktop, or maybe on any shared drive which you can access from your system, it every day it gets uploaded, right? A new data comes there. That's why I'm using the date -1. What is the next thing? So the next thing is that from this active cell, which is your A2, you're gonna move one cell on the same row, and you will use another value which is called the answered call. So you're gonna write here A calls. Okay, and similarly I just quickly copy this, and I paste it here, and I paste it here again, and I just go and write 2, and I just go and write 3. So after the A calls, I have my short calls, and then I have my ST. So finally you have everything, and please ensure that these variables should be your public variables. You cannot declare the local variable, because if you run this line, for example, if I just run this, see what will happen. Variable not defined. Now a call is already defined, but the point is VBA will ask you, where have you defined it? Well, I have defined it here. You can see here, it's very clear. I defined it here, right here. But this is not a part of this macro. This is somewhere else, right? This is actually in the command button 1. So this belongs to this. So in order to do that, what you need to do is you go to the module and you declare your all the variables there. So I just go and click here, and I'm just going to cut all these variables from here, okay, because you can't declare the global variables here, right? If I try to do that, for example, if I just write here the global variable, for example, I press enter, it is not going to allow me. So you can't write the global variables in the user form window, but you can write it in the the module. So just copy and paste it here and just change this dim to global. We don't need the employee ID, so let me quickly remove this. So you see guys, when you basically make the projects, dashboards, this is a more of a dashboard, right? Using the Excel VBA user form, you do so many stuff. It's not all just that you draw the things and you write the code. You have to take care of so many things. Now this is a beautiful concept where you learn that how the global variables are used. Many people in my training also ask me, they get confused. So this is one of the best thing. Now if I run this, you see that I click here, there's no error coming here, guys. This is what we actually needed it, right? Because now they are global variables. They can be accessed from any module and from any user form you create, right? As long as that is a part of this workbook, which is book 1. So let us go ahead and let us run this. I'm going to save this. There we go. So I want to view my details. I view my details. They are coming very nice. I want to export the details. Let us see. Wow, the details are exported. I close this. You can also create a one button which can exit from the, just in case if you want, you can create the button. I just go in the toolbox and I'm going to create here command button, and I just write here this. I press F4. F4 is to basically go to the property window. I talked about all this in all those basic videos. So I come here and I give the caption here called the exit. So you double click on the exit and you write here unload me. Unload means that the form is going to disappear. So if I just run this and I click exit, you see that the form is gone. Now what I want to do is next day again, just suppose you are opening this file next day. So what will happen when you will run this? What will happen when you run this? You click on the export details. For example, you see that the next date detail would be here. Now this is showing the same result, obviously because of the reason that we have the same data. The data is not replaced by 25th. And you see guys, one more thing which is coming here 000, because of the reason that you didn't actually run this view details macro. So if you're not going to run the view details view macro, then what will happen? This part will not be executed, and if this part is not going to be executed, the VLOOKUP is not going to capture these details, and this will come as empty. So maybe here you can write here, I hope you got my point. What I'm saying that if I just run this directly, for example, if I just run this, I haven't clicked on the view detail, what will happen? The code will start here and this entire VLOOKUP part will be missed. So if the VLOOKUP is going to be missed, obviously this will be empty, right? So first it have to go here. This is the important point, right? So in order to do that, what you can do is in the view details, you can always write here that message box, and you can or maybe not here, but in the message box command button 2, you can write here that message box, have you run the view button, have you clicked on the view button, whatever you want to say, right? And then you can give here VB yes and no. Okay, so what will happen now if the user remembers that that, right, so I haven't actually pressed that view button, so I should cancel the macro. So here you can give that option. So you can write here z equals to this, and you just put it with this all in the open in the close parenthesis. And now what we need to do is I just want to create a dim z as string or variant, maybe you can declare this. And now what we will do, just a second, why I'm actually getting the error here, expected end of the statement, what's wrong with this? Let me do that again. I just write here Z equals to, okay, so my silly mistake, I forgot to put the message box. This has to go in the message box, and now I'm going to write here VB yes and no. So if the user clicks on the no, then what should happen? So if the Z answer, which is going to be come from the message box, if that is going to be no, for example, if that is going to come as yes, then run this entire procedure, and if it is not, else exit the sub. Okay, exit sub. Okay, and you can write here the message box that leaving. Okay, whatever you want to do. Now what will happen when the user come here and he suppose didn't click on the view detail, which is mandatory, and he clicks on the export detail, will get the error. Well, that's something I never wanted to do that. I think I forgot to write here end if. All right, now he clicks here and this button would come, message box, have you run the view button? Oh, I forgot it, so let me just click no, and you see that leaving, right? You are coming back here, nothing will happen. So now the user go ahead and click on the view detail, he gets all these details, and now he click on the export detail, and now we should be able to see that. Have you run the view button? Yes, I just ran, thank you so much. I click on the view, and there we go. So guys, this is a very good example, and this is a more of a practical example where I didn't prepare much for the coding. I wanted to go with the flow so that you can see that when we program the things, how we actually come across different things. Previously I thought employee ID would be a good idea, but then we saw that employee ID means that you write any employee ID and it is going to use the VLOOKUP, and it's going to give you the detail of that employee ID, which is absolutely doesn't make any sense, right? It's very foolish of me actually. So what I did is I changed the entire form, I deleted that. So now user doesn't have to enter anything, right? So it will automatically capture the username from your machine, whatever you're using, right? And then that is going to be given to you. Now if you allow somebody else to log in your place, giving your password and username, I think that's not only the you're breaking the basically the guidelines, and the business code of conduct. Well, I'm not here to talk about that, I'm not really a lecturer right? But the point is that why would you do that? It doesn't make any sense. If you do that, then do not use at least this kind of a dashboard right? And another thing, the beautiful thing we did is global variables we used, and I told you the reason. And one more thing, this message box very nice, just have the first click on the view detail, and then click on this export detail. So this is how day by day your files keep on getting this your particular book one file, it will hold all the data from you now, right? Now, so this I am talking specifically in the the criteria which I have thought of. You may have a different criteria. For example, in this case, if you don't have this main DB file updating on the shared drive every day, it doesn't make any sense, this kind of a dashboard. Then you will have to think of different things, right? Or maybe somebody, if your admin is mailing you this file and then you can save it on your desktop every day, that is also a good idea instead of on the shared drive. But if I ask this question to 100 people, 100 people will give me the 100 different scenarios, right? But you should understand what exactly we did in this coding, right? This is basically your important code. You should understand how the forms are how we draw the forms, and how we basically write the programming, and how beautifully we use the variables, everything, conditions, or maybe the message boxes. We have used so many things. So you can pause the video, you can check out this simple code, and then let me scroll it down, and this is another code for you, right? So I hope you have enjoyed this session where we struggled a little bit, but then we finally came as a winner. We rectified all the things, and I hope you will like this video and more of a dashboard. I wanted to actually discuss this. It was a long time pending. So anyways guys, thank you so much for watching, and do subscribe to the channel. And then in the next video we're going to talk about how to basically use the information from the access using the same form. So the database would remain same, but it would be on the access, and how you're going to connect that from the Excel user form. Thank you so much for watching.